Big church, nobody wants to sit right there.
All right, it's 6 o'clock. I'll call this meeting to order, and this is our study session of June the 11th. We'll move right on down to number 5, presentations and appointments. Mayor's appointments to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Terry Brewer has said he would continue to serve. Philip, who else have we got?
Terry Brewer and Miss Lisa Cole said she
Okay.
would do again.
Miss
and then,
Lisa, that's right.
Got a feeler out there for one, but she hasn't confirmed yet.
Okay, right. Any questions on that? Terry's, like I said, currently serving, and as well as Lisa. Completion and review of unfinished business, ordinance 2026-1144, budget amendment for the 25-26 fiscal year. It'll be a public hearing and a final reading. Chipper, anything on that?
No changes since the last time. I am gonna review it tomorrow before I send the final documents out to you all, and we publish the agenda just to see if there's any changes. But as of today, no changes.
Okay. Public hearing to consider exceeding the certified tax rate.
Sure. So this is a reappraisal year in Murray County, and when property values are increased, taxes also increase. So to keep that from happening, the city is supposed to pass the certified tax rate this year or any year of a reappraisal. The certified tax rate is a tax neutral tax rate that prevents an increase. So the certified tax rate this year is 1.2426. However, the tax rate, that new certified tax rate, is not sufficient to meet the city's budget. The current budget that y'all reviewed last month is based on a tax rate of 1.4975. That is a tax increase, even though it is less than what your current tax rate is. But the city believes that that's necessary. You'll hear a lot about that when we go over the budget from Schiffer and Phillip.
Anything else on that?
One of the special, you have to follow certain criteria. One of that is a separate public hearing. So on Tuesday, there would be 2 public hearings, a specific public hearing to exceed the certified tax rate, and then another public hearing on the budget.
Correct. All right. Any questions from anybody on that? Ordinance 2026-1145 budget presentation for the 2026-2027 and the tax rate. Again, Tuesday, there'll be a public hearing and the final reading. Corey, Schiffer, Philip?
I have all my notes that I presented to you all last month. There isn't any. I'll just go.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
There isn't any change on what we presented. We'll attach all that to the agenda again tomorrow when we send it out and publish it. If you all have any other questions for me, we have that. If y'all want me to go over my notes like I did last week or last month, I can. Just looking for guidance from y'all. It's majority of the stuff that's different in there you all already know. With stormwater is a huge priority, fire truck, parks director. I think that's pretty much the big ones, and then paving that's in there. So
Okay.
But if you all have any questions for me on that, but I will have all of that attached to the agenda, so it'll be open to everybody to see too. So, and already the stuff from last month's already out there on the website too. So
Right. Phil,
Yes, sir.
I think, because I know we have a number of people here that are probably attending because of what we're looking at doing as our tax rate. And I can tell you, everybody in the audience, there has been an extreme amount of work done on this. Like even today, I know I've been in this office with Philip and Schiffer on and off all day trying to figure out and make sure we're getting it right. Philip, if we, you came up with some numbers today, you and Schiffer came up with some numbers today. If we took it below 149, some of the things that we would have to absolutely get rid of if we lowered it below 149 to get it down to like even 136. And
So
some numbers like that. So between you and Schiffer, if y'all would kind of explain what we
no, you
looked very deeply into.
Yeah, so if you remember, we started at 159 and
Yes.
went to the drawing board and moved some things around back to state street aid on paving and all those good things. So what we looked at is what could we do to meet the minimum fund balance that you put in front of us of the general fund, which is 25%, and plus 5% for emergency. So it's effectively a little over $2 million. We took it down as far as we can go in a deficit budget to be able to meet that. So 136 something is right there. So we'd be budgeting with no cuts with what's presented, and it would be a $300,000 deficit. The idea is there enough revenue coming in the next fiscal year? Maybe, maybe not. I can't put a percentage on it, but more than likely you're raising taxes next year to keep that minimum fund balance. Then we went all the way back to the certified tax rate at 124. So we can balance the budget, but we're cutting out stormwater, we're cutting the parks director, we're cutting the senior programming, we are cutting the 50,000 a year in capital parks project. Paving's still there, but we had to move the paving from State Street aid back to general fund because we can't make it up. So there's always been a priority to be able to pave streets. So we can balance that budget at the rate, but cutting out those programs that we did through strategic planning with stormwater and all those things.
And I know there has been a lot of conversation about the stormwater and the need for it in this community, and it has been needed for, I dare say, 50, 60 years. And, sooner or later, you've just got to finally face what is reality, particularly if we want to continue to enhance our community. I think, there has been a whole lot of discussion about stormwater, even to the fact that now we are looking at doing it on your taxes versus having a special fund for it and having to go out and hire additional people to manage that fund. So you would be looking at an even higher rate if we were not going to take this outside and fund it under a stormwater utility. With us keeping it and putting it under the tax rate, this keeps us from probably having to hire, we know, at least 2 more people, possibly 3. So that's the reason that while we're keeping the stormwater in there, it's again, there's been a lot of discussion about that even outside of last month's meeting. It started during our strategic plan. It started last year, even some conversations about it. And the work that's been done, it was just decided that it was best to do it off the taxes so we don't have to hire a single employee to help cover it. And instead of the 347 that we were looking at putting in annually, it's down to 250 now. I want to be real honest and real straight and real clear with everybody. You won't see a lot done with $250,000 in today's time. I mean, you can't get much done in the public sector and in governmental work today for $250,000. We've looked at grant opportunities. We've looked everywhere we can to try to find the money to be able to support that outside of that. It's just not there.
So what we would do, we would dedicate that every year into a fund balance, or the fund balance for the stormwater. We would start next year. We understand the problems. We have a model. We'd go into the survey and the engineering of the tributaries. That would take a year or 2, and each year we can pile on that. You're exactly right. We would take those funds and we try to find matching fund grants with that state revolving grant loans, those kind of things. That's how we would fund this program. You're right. We did study the stormwater utility, and after looking at it and looking at the user fees and non-residential user fees, we just wasn't going to get anywhere with that. By the time you pay employees, it just wasn't enough revenue to do anything with it. And I'm glad we studied it, so it made us understand it even more.
Yes, it did.
That's how we came to that conclusion.
Yes, it did.
I'm just gonna add one thing on the fund balance policy.
Yes.
We have a fund balance policy, like Philip was saying, which is 25%, which is pretty much that's the overall practice between governments. You keep 25% of your fund balance at all times, which is of your expenditure budget every year. You should have that in your bank at all times to operate. If anything happens, we have an additional 5% that you all had appropriated in a policy a few years ago for stabilization, but it's like disaster stabilization. So we are supposed to restrict 30% of our fund balance at all times. And like Philip said, based on this year's budget, that's close to $2.1 million. We would have that. The only thing is, if you take your fund balance down to the minimum that you are required to do, if there is an emergency, we have already maxed out our fund balance. That's the only thing that, as the finance director, I feel like you all need to know, that most cities and counties that have high debt ratings through the agencies around the country that rates cities, we're a AA minus right now because we had a pretty strong fund balance the last time they rated us and we did a borrowing. But the general fund is also your tax receiving fund. That is, when we do revenue bonds, even in utilities, they use the tax basis out of the general fund as a basis of rating us. They want to always look at the fund balance in the general fund. So you don't want to budget deficit every year. We budgeted deficit this year of $765,000 is what our deficit was for this year that we budgeted. We will overcome some of it because, again, we spend carefully. We also didn't do all the street projects we planned to do. So between all of those things, we aren't going to end up in a deficit of 765. It's going to possibly be closer to 400. But again, we are still dipping 400,000 into our fund balance. Every year you do that, 400, whichever way we go, you don't have that much left in there. We started this year with $3.7 million. We would probably end it, like I said, if we dip at 400,000, we'll probably end at 3.3. And again, if we keep going, we're slowly just eating up that balance. So.
Yes. Anything else y'all would like to add?
I know y'all know this, but the budget is based on the tax rate.
Right.
So if there are changes or questions y'all have about the tax rate or the budget, those are things that we would like to know so that we can amend and bring something different to you, or at least recalculate and have different options to present to y'all for next week. So the one right now is
1.4975 is the rate that was presented last meeting. If whatever the guidance is from the commission, we can go back to the drawing board. Of course, the ordinance is going to be presented as is, as it was approved last month. But if you all have any changes you want made to it, we just have to publicly discuss them in a meeting, and then we would have to put them in the budget and put them in the form of a motion on Tuesday.
and we do have to pass a budget by the end of June.
Yes. Well, and that, just for everybody's information, that's required by the state of Tennessee comptroller or comptroller's office. And you don't want to be on that list without having it done.
So I would say this tonight, because it can be confusing. If you decide to go below 136, we're having to cut out of this. We can make it. I feel like we can watch it closely, and we may be raising taxes next year. But if you decide and you want to go below 136, I don't remember the total number, we have to go back to drawing board, start cutting things out.
1.369 was the, I think that was what was mentioned to us to kind of calculate by one of the commissioners, and then of course the
Can I ask?
certified rate.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
So if we stick with the budget that we have and with taking the new tax rate, how does that affect each person's taxes? With like, is there a general percentage that everyone's would go up or down, or would that work?
I wouldn't know individually.
But I mean, is there a general sense of if, because the government came down, we kept it where we are right now, we kept the tax rate where it is now, what everybody's already currently paying, would that cover the current budget?
When we look at some of them were significant, and then when we looked at some areas, they actually went down. And I don't know how to put a number on that without having the exact same parcel address and doing that.
It's mainly based on how much your property value went up. And I think people that have, and this is just me speaking on all the thing that we've been looking at, you have more land, I think your property value went up more because land has just, in the last 4 years, land in this area has become more valuable. So those probably the taxes on the people who own more land would be higher, obviously, than the ones that don't have a lot of acreage. But how to calculate a percentage? Yes, we can look at probably a few properties and maybe see if we can come up with that for the Tuesday meeting. So I can try to look at some of those, but I do have a spreadsheet where, I can enter somebody's property value in there that they've received from the county and just see what their tax rate difference would be. And like Philip said, we've done that on a few properties, and there's been, which was different for us, but there is some that actually would go down. It's not that many, but the ones we looked at, like mine, I looked at mine, and yeah, so just have to look at it.
Yeah.
For each person's scenario is different based on the value of their property.
I think personally, just knowing how hard you guys have worked and all the staff to try to make sure that if there's anything we're not doing is spending money that we don't have, that we don't need. Everything that's in that budget, we've really talked through and worked through and gone as low as we can to make sure that we're the biggest complaint we get is, what about the streets? What about this and what about that? We can't do any of that. We can't fix the stormwater issue if we don't start investing in it. And that's just what I think we've just got to do. I don't think, we've said many times, it's a no-brainer. We have to start fixing this because generations of people have not done it. They've gotten scared and left it. And it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. So I think where I'm leaning is that we stick with the budget that we came up with, that we'll be able to get the paving, stormwater, all those things done and started. And maybe have some examples of what some properties in general, like out behind here, or like my house lot, or the standard lot that's in each neighborhood, or something like that, just so people can see. Because it is scary if you don't know how much it's gonna change. I understand that. I don't know what it would be for my house. So, but I do know that there's nothing in this budget that we don't need to get started on or get done. And I think that that's our job, is to protect the city and make sure that we're moving forward and not being stagnant or going backward. And especially our standing in financially, being in the deficit and all that stuff. It's just not good business.
I'm gonna touch on a couple of other things here. State shared revenues, and that's what's passed down through the state back to the communities. For 25-26, our state shared revenue average was $184.54. Well, you've got some communities that are growing very fast, so theirs goes up exponentially, and ours went down to $180.20. So there's $4.34. Boom, 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 every time you look at somebody. One of the things that we do feel very strongly about is we've got great parks, and we need a parks director full-time in the worst sort of way, just to cover everything. Salaries and benefits, yes, there is a slight increase for all the employees. Over the last 3 years, we've had a 26% increase in insurance costs. I probably don't know many people in this room that hadn't had an increase in their insurance costs over the last few years. It's just part of what that market is doing now. We had looked at doing a part-time senior citizens coordinator. We have removed that from the budget. We felt like, or hoping that maybe the county will continue to do that. Fire truck is something that is a must. We have one now that needs to be replaced last year. The good news is that we got a USDA loan for that, so it's very low interest. And so that helps a lot. But there's a $1.1 million. And I don't think there's anybody in here that does not want their home protected as quickly as possible. So that's just some of the highlights of this. As we get on down here, we're going to go into some of the nonprofits, and I'll explain to you what each one of those donations will be. And so with that, Lori, you got anything you'd like to add?
No, I just wanted to make sure we do get it at a rate where we can keep our strategic planning in place.
Yes.
Because I think that's very important. And if we don't start the stormwater, nobody will.
You're exactly
And
right.
it's damaging foundations, yards, everything.
Yes. Willie?
I just have to agree with everything that's been said. We can't keep kicking the bucket down the road. We got to start somewhere. Nobody wants tax increase, but we have to keep our city running, and it's just part of it.
Pam, anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I don't want to pay more, but I'll pay more to make sure my house is protected.
Yes.
And walls aren't falling in from water.
Well, I've studied this. I've worked, Philip called him and sit down. There's no other way around it.
And I know there are a lot of people that are compared to the other communities, particularly Columbia and Spring Hill.
They do.
They are much larger. Their values are much higher. We got on the phone with Bobby Daniels, the Murray County tax assessor, and he went through some numbers, and it was eye-opening what some of those values are doing there. So they have traditionally been below what the certified tax rate was. And they can continue to do that because of what particularly, he pointed out Columbia, Tennessee, in that so much of Columbia, Tennessee had that property zoned as agriculture. Well, it got sold and now it's zoned residential. So the tax rate on that property went up in a big number because ag rate is a whole lot lower than residential. So their dollar is worth more money than ours is. And I think as a community, what we've heard up here from this audience a lot, they don't want to see us be a Columbia or Spring Hill. Good Lord knows we certainly don't want to be like Spring Hill and under a moratorium and can't do a thing. We've been through that before with the sewer and we managed to work ourselves out of it. But I don't think that's who we want to be, folks. And if that changes, somebody needs to tell me. But I'm just trying to get down to so everybody completely understands why we've got to do what we've got to do and what we are looking at very closely to make sure that we're not spending any more money than we have to.
Mayor, I'll add to that just briefly. One of the things that you're exactly right. A lot of us in this room have been around a long time. I think it simply comes down to we're our own unique community. If you want us to fix it, we've got the staff to fix it, and we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Or we can sit on our hands.
Kind of where we
From
are.
my perspective.
All right, anything else on this? All right, monthly report from Mayor. I don't have anything tonight. Monthly financial and budget report, Shifra.
I'll have more on Tuesday.
Okay. Philip, anything tonight?
I have Tuesday.
All right. Other department reports, wastewater?
Won't have a lot Tuesday, and that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
Tuesday I'll have something.
All right, gas?
We had a gas meeting today, but I'll talk about it Tuesday, and then we're still waiting on the grant opportunity at Cherry Grant.
Okay, great. New business ordinance 2026-1141 zoning, first reading, and ordinance repealing and replacing Title 14, zoning and land use control, Chapter 2, zoning ordinance of the Mount Pleasant Municipal Code. Corey?
So the purpose of this ordinance is to repeal and replace your existing ordinance. It is a repeal and replace because there were a lot of little changes throughout the whole document. But the major changes that we've talked about before, but I'll just highlight them for the benefit of everybody. It adds a new section related to annexation. It adds a new section creating a new residential district for large lot residential and agriculture. It adds a new planned unit development overlay district. It adds, it amends the section for low density residential to allow accessory dwelling units in R1 zones. It amends the R3 high density residential section by changing the description. So I'll stop there. That seems to be the item that has caused everybody to concern. Okay, so we looked at it twice at the Planning Commission. We've talked about it at this commission. It was discussed last meeting. I sent you all a memo kind of explaining how the different options that were presented to the Planning Commission that y'all could consider if you wanted to, explaining how the zoning ordinance different sections work together. Y'all have had that for a couple days. If that's something you want me to talk about here, elaborate, got questions, I'd be happy to do that. But that one sentence, one section of that description, that I think was the pivotal item on last month. Okay. So that still, it is presented the same way it was presented last month, but if that is a section, just like any section, if there's one thing you want to change, y'all can talk about that. You're not bound by what the Planning Commission did. Planning Commission gave you guidance, but because it's text, y'all can review, revise, whatever you need to do. Okay. The proposal amends light industrial by removing certain permitted uses from that district to make it more distinct from heavy industrial. We added updated fees for annexation and for the PUD because those are different processes that are more intensive for staff and consultants. And so those are costs we need to recover, and we need to be able to, basically we need to be able to cover those. Let's see, we're adding We corrected some different citations and references throughout the document. You know, when you add one section, it changes all the numbers. Also, as y'all know, when you look at our Muni code online, the zoning ordinance is in Appendix B, which is annoying. But we have figured out why that is, and they need the numbers in our zoning ordinance to match the numbers in our other parts of the municipal code. So if y'all pass this, the next version you get will have different numbers. The text will be the same, but the numbers will be different throughout because they will have to match our current municipal code. So it will take away Appendix B. We added some definitions, we changed some tables, and again, the entire zoning ordinance is in your packet. We've talked about it a bunch of times. I feel like I know what the issue was last month, and I'm here to talk about it if you've got anything you want to.
You know, my thing is the planning commission had a number of meetings to review this and passed it. We're down to basically one sentence. Everybody should remember that this, even though it may go through the planning commission, this body continues to have the last word on it. And I appreciate what everybody's doing with this. We don't be surprised, you will begin to see more and more of them. Our planning and zoning book was written over 10 years ago, and it's time for updates. The community is growing, this whole area is growing, and it's no different than stormwater in some ways. If we don't start moving right now, we'll still be looking back in a few years going, why didn't we do this? So that's where I am.
Right.
Anybody, ladies?
Agree.
I agree. And after you sent what you sent, I understood better.
Yeah, it was great. That's, yeah. All righty. Anything else on that one?
No, sir.
Resolution 2026-24, resolution requesting the Murray County Election Commission to conduct an election within the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Pleasant on Tuesday, November the 23rd of 2026 to elect 2 commissioners.
I think that one, the title pretty much explains.
Pretty much tells what it is.
what you're doing, but you're asking Murray County Election Commission to conduct this
Yes.
election in November.
Yeah. Any questions on that? All right. This is where we're going to get into the nonprofits for a minute. And I will tell you, on the Tuesday night meeting, we are going to do this prior to the budget conversation. So that if it comes out and some things need to be changed, then we'll do it at that time. So I want everybody to be prepared for that on Tuesday night. So resolution 2026-25 nonprofit to Mount Pleasant Ford Foundation. We had previously been giving them $25,000, and it's a recommendation at this time that we reduce that to $20,000. Resolution 2026-26 nonprofit Murray Alliance, $25,000. That's what we have been doing. That is money very well spent. If you look in Cherry Glen, you will see the growth from it, and they are actively in Mount Pleasant constantly doing what they do, and it's great. Resolution 2026-27 nonprofit Murray County Regional Airport, $5,000. That's previously what it was. Resolution 2026-28 nonprofit Kids Place, $1,000. Now that one's new, isn't it, Schiffer and Phillip?
Last year was the first year.
Last year was the first year. Okay. This is the new
The
one.
new one.
Yeah, the next one.
Resolution 2026-29 nonprofit Keep Murray Beautiful. They came down, Katie, didn't they, and assisted us with the cleanup, didn't they?
Yes, I provided it.
Yeah. $750. Murray County Animal Shelter. Sorry, resolution 2026-30. Murray County Animal Shelter. The recommendation is $15,000. Previously, it was $13,000. We have had a much larger number requested from the animal shelter, but we've taken some very close looks at the percentage of the pets that are brought in from each area. and Mount Pleasant is without question one of the very lowest. So we're kind of doing it at what the percentages are. All right, resolution 2026-31, high spending vendor list. Philip?
The Mayor Commissioner Schiffer, she started it last year, so some of those things like, phone services, Spectrum, Centos, things that we don't really necessarily pull POs on. Just,
We pull POs, oh, well, yeah, there's some of them have
Professional
POs and
services.
some of them, it's just ongoing services that we spend more than $25,000 on a yearly basis. At the end of the year, I present that to you all just to be like, these are vendors that we didn't bid out with, or they're just continuation of services as far as, like he was saying, Charter's in there, AT&T is in there, there's some other vendors that we use every year, and so we continue to use them as we go, but I present the list to you all just to be transparent that there are, because our purchasing policy says 25,000 and up, we usually bid out, but there is certain vendors that just local government or other things like that that are, that we spend. with, so-
Cumulatively, you spend.
Cumulatively,
You don't
yeah.
at one
Cumulative.
time do
Yeah.
Not
buy
one
it.
No,
payment.
not one purchase, no.
For the full year.
Cumulatively, we spent that since July to June the 3rd is when I ran the report, so. That's what
Okay.
we had spent.
Philip, anything you want to add to that?
no, sir.
All right,
There'll be a spreadsheet attached to the resolution to kind of show you all the numbers.
great. Any questions?
Nope.
Resolution 2026-32, bond resolution from Bass Berry Sims for fire truck.
Mayor Commissioner, that may be pulled because we're still waiting on Vance with USDA to
Okay,
get that from them,
Yep.
and we're gonna have it by tomorrow. I'm not looking like we're gonna have it, so maybe push till next month.
okay. Resolution 2026-33, downtown grant anticipation extension.
So this one. An extension. We are still closing, even though downtown's been run and open, we are still closing the project out with the state of Tennessee, well, TDOT really, and reimbursements are still slow, so when we borrowed last summer, we did a grant anticipation note to transfer $1,050,000 from the general fund to our capital project, so we could keep paying the contractor and not delay the project and incur more costs. We paid 450, I think, of it back already. And then I received another reimbursement 2 days ago, finally, and I was able to return another 200. So we're down to returning $250,000 back to the general fund from the whole borrowing that we did. But again, all these resolutions for the grant anticipation goes to the comptroller's office. So whenever I reach, the resolution says we were going to pay it off by the end of this month. It's not happening because the final change order is actually on the agenda today to close that project out. So I'm asking for an extension till the end of this year because the state has taken up to 4 months to reimburse, at least 4 to 5 months on some of these reimbursements. So I just got the reimbursement, the one 2 days ago. We've sent it to the state in February. So I'm thinking the last one, once we pay all of this, we send the last one. I may not have the check till Thanksgiving. So that's why I'm giving myself a little bit more leeway till December. So hopefully by December of this year, downtown will be completely closed. Of course, it's done, but the paperwork is change orders and all of that is finalizing now.
Well, fight with them to replace that dead tree.
Yeah,
Yes, and that,
thank you.
before the final
Thank
stuff
you.
gets done, they gotta replace the
Thank you.
That's what
tree.
I was whispering. Trees.
No,
tree.
that tree.
That tree.
That tree.
Anything, anybody appeal on the rest of that? Resolution 2026-34, residential water meter change order.
Mayor Commissioners, if you remember, this is the total water meter change out. This is a little odd, but I see what we're doing. So this change order was for $4,400 add to the total contract. And it was some meter on 3rd Avenue and some concrete they had to replace, and also some 4 2-inch meters. It does increase the contract price, and you'll see that, but when they do the final adjusting, they've only spent about half of it. So to me, I'm like, I don't want to be going up when we're going to come back down, but I get it because just keeping up with it,
Yeah.
through the line items and adjusting change orders.
And for everybody's information, that with us putting in these new meters, we are beginning to see that we are not using as much water as we thought we were. Some of these meters were ancient, I would call them, so they weren't accurately reading. So I think we're finding some stuff we needed. Resolution 2026, downtown final change order. The tree.
I don't think we're gonna give them the last check till they replace that tree. This is just going over the final quantities. When they did their final review, the engineers did the final review with the contractor. This is the bottom line change order. The change order amount total between engineering and construction is $70,349. We still have funds left in the grant. I talked to our grant manager Friday. She is waiting on the state to confirm some things with her, but we have funds in the grant, so we would only pay 20% of it. The grant will cover the rest of it. So far the grant budget looks like, even with all the change orders, but because the state gave us extra funding, that we will close out with all the funds that we had already appropriated to it. We are good. We wouldn't have to pull from anywhere else.
Good. Good news.
So far that's where she is, but she's working with the state to try to see if we can get all of this done quickly.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions?
And again,
for
you will
Shipper?
have attachments for every one of these on the resolutions to
Right.
see the documents we're referring to.
Right. Anything on that one? Resolution 2026-36, Community Center change order. Bill?
Mayor and Commissioners, it'll be in your packet of the line item list, everything. It is $84,523. The biggest item in there is $59,000 for the floors that were missed. They're gonna be scratched up and redone. But what I will say is that contingencies with the grant and our match is covering this part of it. So I guess the best way to put it, and you can call me and ask me questions, this is not new money. It was in the contingencies and the match, grant matching fund.
That's good news. That's good news. Any questions? Resolution 2026-37, Polk Lane change order.
Mayor and Commissioner, Collier, the engineer called me and we rode out there because he called and said that we probably need to put out some shoulder stone. I was like, okay, so let's ride. But as we rode down through there, I could see what he's talking about, because there's some areas that there's 4 or 5 inches of asphalt now. Compared to what it was, I think it's pretty good. So this change order is for a total of $20,000, and they're gonna put that shoulder stone on the edge. They will bring the machines in, pack it down, up and down there, so keep it from people around off the road, because the asphalt is so thick.
Yeah.
That's unusual, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Don't hear
They
that
did a
often.
great job.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
Have they got it striped yet? Do you know?
No, sir.
Okay.
That's part of it, though. That'll be part of this. Well, it's part of the original bid. That's
Right, I was
But
just
this is
curious if I
the-
hadn't been up that way, so I was just curious if they'd gotten it done. All right, that gets us through this. General comments from citizens. We've had 3 sign up. Mr. Lacy, if you'd come forward and state your name and your address, please, sir.
I'm good.
Okay,
I want to study this stuff.
sure. Okay. Heidi Hoffman? Okay. Sure. And don't hesitate to stop by City Hall. Lee Bork?
Yes, if you're on the roll again.
Mr. Bork, you know the amount of time you got, sir.
Yes, yes. Well, will you give me time to get my
Yeah.
time record? I'd like to address 2 things.
All right, I'm starting.
Wait a minute. Together here. Okay. Well, my name is Lee Burke, and I live at 6758 Polk Lane in Mount Pleasant. Last month, when I raised concerns, and this is about the ordinance, I was told by the folks here that that land use consideration is already part of the process. And I had a hard time figuring out where that was. So I went back and I read every word of the ordinance all the way through, and I pulled out anything that came close to considering land use. It actually only appears once, and that is in relation to site plan and design review, which takes place after the zoning is already set. So it doesn't affect the zoning, and that's what we're really talking about. The second place is in 4.7, and that applies only to annexation. And what it says there, it's consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, which I understand that's a county plan, and the city just checks off the things that make part of their own. It does talk about ensuring that new development within existing neighborhoods is of appropriate scale and intensity in relation to existing development. But this 4.7 only applies to annexation. So that's 2 near misses, but not really in the decision path. The third place is section 4.8, which does pertain to zoning amendments, and that's where the discussion really is. And it makes a reference to in agreement with the land use plan. That's all it says. But I could find no land use plan. Do we have a land use plan? There's a placeholder for it in the county plan, but there's nothing in there for Mount Pleasant. So that makes that meaningless. So we have 3 near misses. And here's the bottom line for me. I heard last time, agreement across the board that it's part of the process. I can't see that it's part of the process. So my question is, if everybody's in agreement that it's part of the process and had already accepted that, why not include that little phrase with the other criteria that are proposed for R3 definition? Then it covers your annexation, it covers the amendments to the agreement, and it covers the whole thing. Why leave the uncertainty? The second thing I'd like to mention is on the tax issue. Answering your question, I've done calculations and I can send them to you. This one represents about 21% increase, combined with the 32% increase in from 21 to 22. The total increase in 4 years is 50%. Mine, when I calculated, is 75%. So my tax value is someplace off. So that you asked the question and I had reasonable in the top of my head, so I thought I would share that with you. The other thing is I would ask a question, I'd like a response if I could get it. Are you going to respond? Is it going to be for passing or solid line on Polk Lane? Solid. You're a good man. Thank you.
All right, that's everybody we had sign up. Thank y'all very much. Anybody else up here, anything you want to add, Miss Lori?
No, I do want to say that Miss Sherry at the museum, the new book that's out is called When Dirt Turns to Gold. And she has it on sale at the museum for $35 now, if anybody wants.
All righty. Miss Willie?
I don't have anything.
Miss Pam?
I'm all good. Thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank y'all for
Appreciate
your
it being here.
attendance. It's good to see people have interest. Thank you for being